The rooftop garden gleamed under chandeliers strung between palm trees, the ocean glittering in the distance. A soft breeze rustled white petals strewn along the aisle as Landon Pierce, tech millionaire turned lifestyle mogul, held the delicate hands of his influencer bride-to-be, Ray Monroe. Her smile was a performance, flawless, filtered, and timed for the cameras. Guests held their breath. The minister's voice faded behind the rustling of phone shutters and the dull clink of champagne glasses. Landon leaned in, clearing his throat to speak his vows. His face betrayed something only a few in the front rows noticed. A twitch at the edge of his jaw. Nervousness? Guilt? Then, the screech of tires. Heads turned. Some thought it was paparazzi arriving late, but no one expected the sleek black limousine that glided to a stop just beyond the hedge. The driver stepped out wordlessly, and from the back door emerged a woman in an emerald green dress, her presence sharp enough to slice through the perfumed air. Eva, Landon's ex-wife. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and tell us where you're tuning in from. She hadn't been seen in public in nearly 4 years. The media had written her off as the forgotten chapter in Landon's rise to fame, a small-town girl who couldn't keep up with his empire. But today, she returned, not alone. 4 small children followed. 2 boys, 2 girls, dressed identically in pale blue linen. Each held the corner of her long shawl as she walked silently toward the crowd. Ray's hand dropped from Landon's as murmurs spread like wildfire. Eva didn't yell. She didn't make a scene. She simply stopped at the base of the aisle, raised her chin, and looked Landon dead in the eyes. He froze. No security moved. No one dared. Eva pulled a folded paper from her clutch. A birth certificate? A legal notice? Or maybe it didn't matter, because the resemblance was already there. 4 faces, 4 sets of his eyes. Ray stepped back. Her perfectly painted smile faltered. Landon never finished his vows. He never even tried. Before the rooftop vows, before the cameras and curated love story, there was only a cluttered 2-bedroom apartment above a dry cleaner in Chicago. Eva would come home after long shifts at the hospital, her shoes soaked from snow, and Landon would be at the kitchen table, wires, sketches, and startup paperwork spread around him like a nest of ambition. Back then, they didn't have money, but they had each other. Landon used to call her his anchor. He said she was the only one who made him feel real in a world that demanded so much pretending. She believed him, especially the night he knelt beside their sagging couch, trembling with awe, holding the ultrasound photo Eva had placed in his hands. "A girl?" he whispered, as if saying it too loudly would shatter the magic. Eva nodded, eyes wide with both hope and terror. He laughed, actually laughed, and kissed her stomach like it was the start of everything. But the joy didn't last. At 24 weeks, Eva was rushed to the ER with bleeding, complications, bed rest, the risk of early labor. That's when Landon changed. He stopped staying up late beside her, stopped singing to her belly. He poured himself deeper into work. She told herself he was stressed, overwhelmed. He told her nothing at all. One day she overheard a call he didn't know she was home to hear. "I can't deal with this right now. She's not herself anymore. It's like I already lost her." Those words dug deep. Eva never confronted him. Instead, she folded smaller into herself. She tracked fetal kicks while he tracked investors. She read parenting books alone while he stayed late for strategy sessions. When the babies, yes, babies, finally arrived, 4 of them against all odds, she thought the miracle might pull him back. But Landon was barely present in the delivery room. He stood stiff in the corner as medical staff rushed around her. She reached for him once. He didn't move. Later that night, Eva held all 4 in her arms, tubes and heart monitors surrounding them. And Landon, he was on a video call in the hallway. Days turned into weeks. Then one morning, a message was left on her nightstand. "You're stronger than me. I can't do this." No goodbye, no explanation. He disappeared. She raised them alone, sleepless, broke, and sometimes terrified. But she endured, and over time, the pain hardened into resolve. Now watching him on TV next to his influencer fiancée, talking about new beginnings, She didn't cry. She opened the closet, pulled out 4 tiny tuxedos, and whispered, "You're going to see your father today." And not behind a screen. Ray Monroe wasn't famous before Landon, not in the way she is now, before the beachside billboards, the brand deals, and the filtered shots of casual mornings in multi-million-dollar villas. She was a cocktail waitress with a decent eye for lighting and a relentless thirst for relevance. They met at a networking retreat in Bali. Eva had just delivered the quadruplets. Landon never told Ray he was married. He told her he'd walked away from something that broke him. It was enough. Ray didn't ask more. She was too busy capturing slow-motion poolside footage, her bikini glinting in golden hour light, while Landon sat beside her, reposting her stories. It worked. The algorithm loved them. They became the internet's perfect couple, billionaire and beauty. Manifestation goals, her followers called it. But Eva, she knew how quickly Landon fell for illusion and how carefully Ray curated hers. Because beneath the captions and candles and coupley brand deals, Eva recognized something chilling in Ray's eyes during one particular live stream. It aired 6 months before the wedding. Ray was giving a tour of their new home, Eva's old house, in fact, with perfectly placed furniture and filtered light. At the edge of the frame, just for a second, Eva saw something. A framed photo. Her photo. Of her and Landon. Still on the mantle. He hadn't even taken it down. That was the moment Eva realized 2 things. He had never fully erased her, and Ray didn't care. Ray wasn't interested in history, only optics. Back in present day, as the limousine crawled toward the wedding gates, Eva watched Ray on a giant screen outside the venue. A pre-recorded clip scheduled for premiere at the moment of her vows. In the video, Ray said tearfully, "I never thought I'd find someone who saw me for me. Not the followers, not the comments, just me." The crowd clapped. Landon smiled. And in the limo, Eva looked at her children, 2 boys and 2 girls, all sleeping peacefully in their matching white outfits, and whispered, "She's about to meet the version of you he never told her about." Eva didn't have followers. She had proof. And as the gates finally opened, she stepped out into the sun, camera flashes erupting, real ones this time. Not filters, not edits, just truth. Raw, undeniable truth. The silence was instant and suffocating. Ray's veil fluttered slightly in the breeze as she turned her head. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Landon's hand, still clutching hers, went cold. His jaw clenched. The officiant, a Hollywood-famous spiritual guide, glanced between the couple and the arriving limo like a man caught between gods. The guests didn't know whether to keep standing. Then Eva stepped out. She wasn't in designer, no dramatic makeup, no entourage, just a clean, modest dress in a posture that said, "I belong here," more than she ever did. The children followed, 2 boys and 2 girls, each wearing a simple ivory outfit, each holding a small white flower. A hush fell as camera lenses spun, clicked, zoomed. One of the girls looked up at Landon and smiled. Ray was the first to speak, barely. "Who is she?" Her voice wavered. Landon didn't answer. Eva walked forward slowly, deliberately. With each step, whispers rippled through the crowd. A couple gasped. A few influencers started recording discreetly. Ray's perfectly staged moment was crumbling. At the altar, Eva stopped 3 feet from the couple. "I didn't come to stop you," she said calmly, addressing both. Her voice, steady and clear, carried farther than any microphone. "I came so the truth could be present when the vows were said." She gestured to the children. "Landon, meet your children. They're not here for revenge. They're here to know the man who helped bring them into this world." Landon's hands dropped. For a brief second, he looked like a man shoved off a ledge he built himself. "No," he muttered. "You had them in secret. I never—" Eva didn't let him finish. She reached into her clutch and handed the officiant a sealed court envelope. Paternity. Signed, certified. He knew. Years ago, but he buried it, paid to keep it quiet. Gasps broke out now. Ray took a shaky step back, the veil slipping. "Is this true?" she asked, voice cracking. Landon opened his mouth, but no words came. The silence was louder than any denial. A moment later, one of the boys tugged Eva's hand and whispered, "Can we go now?" Ava nodded, eyes still locked on Landon. "We already did," she said softly. Then she turned. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She walked back the way she came, with dignity and with 4 children behind her, each carrying a flower that had never made it to the altar. Ray stood frozen. The cameras kept rolling. And the vows, they were never finished. The suite was soundproof, but Landon could still hear the silence. It wasn't the absence of music or laughter. It was the absence of control, of spin, of narrative. For the first time in his perfectly engineered public life, there was no script to follow. He stood in front of the gilded mirror above the fireplace. His wedding tuxedo jacket had been tossed aside. His bow tie hung limp. His face, normally so photogenic, so confident, was pale and drawn. He stared at himself. The man in the mirror didn't blink. A distant knock at the door. He didn't move. His mind replayed the moment Ava stepped from the limo. The kids, their matching outfits, their eyes, his eyes. He could still feel the sting of Ray's voice, "Is this true?" And the crushing weight of not answering. Behind him, a news alert pinged from his phone on the table. CEO Landon Pierce's wedding interrupted by surprise family appearance. Details developing. He didn't need to open it. He knew the headlines were already spiraling. Suddenly, the bathroom door creaked open. Ray stood there, her makeup smudged, veil gone. In her hand, she held the unopened letter Eva had handed the officiant. "I should have known," Ray whispered, approaching slowly. "Your silence was louder than anything she said." "I didn't think they'd come," Landon muttered, eyes still on the mirror. "That's your defense?" Her voice cracked. "I paid for them to have everything," he said, more to himself than to her. "Private school, health care. Eva never wanted me in the picture." "Stop," she cut in. "Don't twist this into generosity. You lied. To me, to them, to everyone." He finally looked at her. "She left," he said. "No," Ray said sharply. "You erased her." Landon sank into the leather armchair. "It was supposed to be perfect today." "It was," she said coldly, holding up her phone. "For her, for the children. They won the moment they walked in." He looked up. "Are you leaving?" Ray's jaw tensed. "I don't know yet, but I'm not staying to play stepmother to secrets." Then she dropped the letter onto the table and walked out. Landon sat in the echo of the door closing. His eyes drifted back to the mirror. The man there still didn't blink. But this time he looked unfamiliar. Eva never told the full story, not even to her own parents. Not the truth about the hospital room, the legal envelope, or the final conversation that broke her. 3 years ago, the night she went into early labor, Landon wasn't there. He didn't answer the phone. His assistant did. The babies came prematurely, 3 girls and a boy, each needing round-the-clock neonatal care. Eva stayed beside them day and night, her body weak, her spirit weaker. But Landon didn't show until the hospital bill started coming in. He arrived with papers, not flowers. "I'll cover everything," he said, cold and efficient. "But this isn't the life I signed up for, Eva. You'll be taken care of." Quietly. The offer was coded in corporate gloss, a trust fund, a non-disclosure agreement, a private pediatrician, and a luxury apartment registered under a shell company. But in return, silence. He didn't say it outright, but she knew what it meant. Disappear, or I'll erase you anyway. At first she resisted. She reminded him of love, of promises, of the ultrasound photo he once framed. But Landon didn't argue. He simply left the paperwork on the table and walked out of the room. A week later, her insurance was canceled. 2 days after that, eviction notices came for her parents' home, the one he had secretly bought and placed in a holding account she never knew existed. He didn't threaten her with words. He used the systems he built: legal, financial, emotional. She signed, not because she wanted to, but because her children deserved warmth, medicine, milk, and a roof. He gave her just enough to survive, but never enough to be visible again. And so she vanished. Not physically, but from the life she once knew. No phone calls, No social media, just pediatric appointments and night feedings and bills paid by an assistant who never made eye contact. Until she saw the wedding announcement, the headlines. Landon Pierce, the billionaire family man-to-be. And something inside her cracked. She wasn't angry for herself. She was angry for them, for the four hearts who didn't even know their father existed. She wouldn't crash the wedding for revenge. She'd crash it for truth. The world knew Landon as a visionary, a romantic, a public hero. She knew better. She had lived the quiet version of his cruelty, the kind that never made headlines, only scars. And that limousine? It wasn't for spectacle. It was the only ride she could afford. After selling the apartment he left them in, the footage from the wedding had already gone viral. Headlines splashed across every digital front page. Billionaire groom ambushed by ex-wife and her children during vows. But that wasn't what shook Landon's empire. It was a scanned document. 4 pages, 4 names, 4 birth certificates, with his name typed cleanly in the father field. At first, he tried to deny it, claimed it was fake, manipulated, part of some elaborate blackmail scheme. But the state stamp was real. So was the doctor's signature. And the date, 3 weeks before he launched his first tech fund, when Eva nearly bled out delivering the babies alone. Landon had never signed the certificates himself. He refused back then. But Eva, fearing legal chaos over unnamed parentage, had filed them anyway. She gave the state the truth. And now, that truth had come roaring back like a freight train in front of the world. Ray, the influencer bride, sat frozen in their honeymoon suite, scrolling the documents over and over. She hadn't spoken since they left the altar in shame. He said he had no kids, she finally whispered, glass of untouched champagne still in hand. He said he wanted a fresh start. Landon tried to recover his footing. PR teams were dispatched. Lawyers scrambled. But nothing could spin what now felt undeniable. The man who built his brand on transparency had lied about the most human thing imaginable, his own flesh and blood. In a quiet part of the city, Eva sat on the floor of a studio apartment, the children asleep in makeshift beds made from blankets and pillows. She stared at her cracked phone screen, watching her truth being dissected online. Some people called her brave. Others called her opportunistic, but she didn't care. Because for the first time, no one could erase her. Or them. Landon's team offered her silence again, this time with a higher dollar amount. But Eva didn't respond. This wasn't about money. She had been poor before. What she'd never been was heard. And now the world was listening. At Landon's mansion, a late-night knock shattered the silence. It was his mother. She said nothing for a long time, just stood there with tears in her eyes. Finally, she spoke. I saw the birth certificates. You named them after your grandfather, all 4 of them. Eva never changed it. Landon's mouth opened, but no defense came. Because the truth, he had loved them once, in his own twisted, buried way. And now they bore his name in full view, and he bore their silence. The penthouse suite reeked of dying roses and media spin. Ray sat cross-legged on the white leather sofa, her phone glowing with thousands of unread messages. Fans, sponsors, brand managers, all waiting for her to speak. Landon stood across the room, pacing like a cornered animal. They're just children, he said, voice low. They don't change anything between us. But Ray didn't blink. Her tone was ice. They change everything, Landon. He tried to approach, reaching for her hand, but she pulled back. I built my career on honesty, she continued. My followers know everything, my breakups, my acne, my miscarriages. And you expect me to pretend you don't have 4 kids? He sank into a chair. I didn't ask for this, he muttered. And neither did they, she snapped. A long silence followed. Ray stood up, walked to the window, then turned back around. I'll stay, she said finally, on one condition. Landon's head lifted slowly. You acknowledge them. In public. A press conference tomorrow morning. Call them by name. Call her by name, or I'm gone. Landon stared, stunned. You'd blow up the wedding? Ray tilted her head. You already did. He didn't answer. Couldn't. That night, while he lay awake beside an untouched engagement ring, Eva opened her inbox. Ray had emailed her. A single line. They deserve to be seen. I'm making sure of it. The next morning, as reporters gathered outside the venue that had once been reserved for celebration, Landon stepped in front of the cameras. His voice trembled. I have 4 children, he said. The crowd gasped. He went on. They were born during a time when I wasn't ready. That's not an excuse. It's a truth. And their mother, Eva, is the strongest person I've ever known. The video went viral instantly. But even before the first like or comment landed, Eva received a second message. From Ray, just a photo. The podium, the world watching, and Landon, finally telling the truth. The courtroom wasn't the kind with wood-paneled dignity and quiet order. This one had reporters outside, fans of Ray live tweeting updates, and an overflow room packed with strangers who had become far too invested in Eva's life. Eva held her composure as she entered, the quadruplets flanking her like little satellites. Each one clutched something small, a drawing, a juice box, as if bracing for what they didn't fully understand. Landon sat at the other side of the courtroom, his face carefully arranged into humility. Beside him, his legal team whispered strategies. But the moment his eyes met Eva's, everything else dulled. There was no hate in her gaze, only exhaustion. The judge glanced over the files, eyebrows rising. 4 years of no contact, Mr. Pierce? I wasn't aware, Landon answered carefully, that they were mine. Eva didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her silence was a wall he couldn't scale. Ray wasn't present, but her impact echoed in every camera flash. Landon's public confession had softened his image. But this was no PR stunt. This was about the children. The judge leaned forward. Do you wish to pursue shared custody? Landon hesitated, then nodded. I want to know them. I want to be better. A ripple went through the room. Outside, reporters scribbled furiously. Inside, Eva finally spoke. My children don't need guilt, or press, or promises made to clean up a headline, she said softly. They need someone who shows up at 2 a.m. when the fever hits. Someone who knows who takes which cereal and which twin won't sleep without the yellow blanket. Her voice didn't shake. It cut. The judge nodded slowly. Temporary supervised visitation, he ruled. We'll revisit in 3 months. As the room emptied, Eva turned to leave. But one of the children, Clara, tugged her hand away and walked up to Landon. She didn't say anything, just stood there, small and unblinking. Landon knelt down. Hi, he said gently. She didn't smile, but she didn't run either. That night, a photo surfaced online. Eva walking out of the courtroom with her head high, Landon walking behind with a child beside him. The caption read, Atonement begins. But Eva knew better. It hadn't even started yet. The balloons were all yellow, just like Clara liked. The cake had 4 sections, one for each child's flavor request. Eva had stayed up until 3 a.m., finishing the decorations herself. There were no party planners, no Instagram stories, just effort. Landon had promised he'd come. Eva didn't believe it, but she'd told the kids anyway, just in case. At 2 p.m., the backyard buzzed with laughter, spilled juice, and children's squeals. Friends from the neighborhood gathered around the picnic tables, while the quadruplets tore into wrapping paper with unfiltered joy. But Clara kept glancing toward the gate. Is Daddy coming? She whispered. Eva smiled. Maybe, sweetheart. But 3 o'clock passed, then 4 o'clock. The candles were lit, the song was sung. No sign of Landon. And then just after the cake was sliced, Eva's phone buzzed. A text from Landon. I'm so sorry, emergency press call. We'll make it up to them. Please tell them. No call, just a line typed in haste. Eva stared at it, thumb hovering. Then she locked the phone and placed it face down. She sat with the kids as they dug into the cake, pretending the ache in her chest wasn't new. It was old, familiar, a shadow that had followed her since the day he left. Later that night, when the children were asleep and the house had gone quiet, Eva stepped into the laundry room, closed the door, and finally let her breath break. Not out of heartbreak, but out of confirmation. This This absence, this failure to show up, was why she'd never chased him. Why she hadn't hunted him down when she gave birth to 4 babies alone in a hospital where his name was missing from every form. She wiped her eyes and stepped back out into the hallway, where tiny socks were still scattered like confetti and a half-eaten cupcake sat on the stairs. That night, Eva posted one photo, just one. The 4 kids lined up behind the cake, mid-laugh, frosting on their faces, arms slung around each other. Her caption was simple: "Everything they need is already here." The likes poured in. So did the private messages, including one from someone she never expected: Sierra Monroe, Ray's former best friend. The message was one line: "I know exactly what he did. Call me." Eva didn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at Sierra's message. "I know exactly what he did. Call me." Her finger hovered over the reply button until dawn. When the house was quiet and the sun began to stretch across the kitchen floor, Eva finally typed 2 words: "I'm listening." The response came seconds later: "Meet me. I'll come to you." They met at a nondescript coffee shop on the edge of town. Sierra wore oversized sunglasses and a hoodie pulled low. She looked nothing like the woman who graced magazines beside Landon now. When Eva sat down, Sierra didn't say hello. She slid a phone across the table. Unlocked. "There are voice notes," Sierra said. "Start with May 14th. Eva hesitated, then hit play. Landon's voice filled the space between them. He was angry, breathless. "I don't care if Eva's sick. I told you. I can't have that baggage dragging behind me." Pause. "I don't owe those kids anything. She made her choice." Eva's hands shook, but she said nothing. "I was pregnant," Sierra whispered, 2 years ago, before he made it public with me." Eva looked up, startled. "I didn't go through with it," Sierra said. "He told me to take care of it quietly. He said his image couldn't survive another surprise family. His words." A tear rolled down her cheek. She didn't wipe it. "I left him after that, but he made it look like I cheated. He took my silence and turned it into guilt." Eva couldn't breathe. Sierra looked her in the eye. "He did the same to you. The same lies. The same playbook." Eva thought of the hospital records that never bore Landon's name, of the way he never returned her calls after she told him she was caring 4, of the lawyers who never came, the silence that wrapped itself around her like rope. "What do you want from me?" Eva asked. Sierra shook her head. "Not money, not revenge. Just this." She pointed to the phone. "Take it. Use it." Eva hesitated, then took the phone. Sierra stood. "Do something with it, because he's about to marry into millions more, and he'll do it again. To someone else. Or your children." Eva whispered, "Thank you." As Sierra walked away, Eva looked at the screen. The recording list was long. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was a pattern, and it was time to break it. The rooftop was dressed in gold and crystal. Photographers whispered behind cameras. Ray Monroe, Landon's influencer bride, descended the spiral stairs in a couture gown, unaware that every flashbulb would soon capture something else entirely. Eva was already there. She stood by the floral arch, flanked by 4 children in matching ivory suits and dresses. A velvet box sat in her hand, not a ring box, but something heavier. A PR handler tried to stop her. She handed them the court order. "I'm not here to stop a wedding," she said softly, "just to speak truth before vows become lies." The whispers began. Ray, mid-aisle, paused. Landon froze completely. Eva's voice carried in the hush. "You said you weren't ready for children, that you had no past, that your future started today?" She held up the velvet box and opened it slowly. Inside was a USB stick. "And yet, here's a history of your voice telling a different story." Gasps rippled. She turned toward Ray. "He told me the same lies he told you, that I was emotional, too much, unworthy, that my kids were a mistake. But they're not mistakes. They're standing right here." The eldest twin clutched her hand. Eva faced the guests, many of whom were board members, investors, and powerful allies of Landon's company. This man abandoned his family, silenced every woman who got in his way, and now he's trading in another name for more shares, more followers, more headlines. Ray looked at Landon. "Is it true?" Landon said nothing. You told me she made it all up. You said you never even spoke after the divorce. His silence was louder than denial. Eva stepped back, the USB now in Ray's hand. Play it whenever you need to remember who you're marrying. A small boy tugged at Landon's trouser leg. Are you our daddy? Landon didn't answer. He didn't move. Eva turned to her children. Let's go. The limo doors opened again. The cameras didn't follow the bride that day. They followed the woman in flats, with tired eyes and 4 beautiful reminders of the truth. As the limo pulled away, Landon remained beneath the altar, flowers wilting under the weight of silence. The courthouse was quiet. No music, no guests, no flowers. Just Eva, a clerk behind bulletproof glass, and 4 restless children climbing on the wooden benches behind her. Name change form? The woman asked, flipping through papers. Eva nodded. Yes, I'm restoring my maiden name, and the children's too. She glanced down at the form, Eva Jameson. It felt strange, freeing, like reclaiming something that had been quietly stolen. Outside the room, the twins played with a broken vending machine. One held a juice box too tightly. It burst. No one scolded him. Eva just smiled. Do you have supporting documents for the custody acknowledgement? The clerk asked. Eva pulled out a court-certified envelope and slid it through the slot. Inside, paternity results, abandoned divorce papers, a series of legal letters left unanswered by Landon. The clerk skimmed the documents, then stamped each with a firm thud. Done. They're officially Jamesons now. All of them. Eva exhaled. It wasn't revenge. It was restoration. It was truth, finally filed, stamped, and bound in a system that once erased her. She stood, smoothing her coat. A soft knock tapped the glass window again. Do you want to add a comment to the public record? Eva paused, then nodded. She leaned over the small visitor log and wrote in block letters. He left us, but we never disappeared. She signed her name. In the hallway, her children lined up, 2 holding hands, one dragging a stuffed dinosaur, the other tugging at her scarf. They all looked up at her, waiting. Outside, the world hadn't changed, but Eva had. There were no reporters, no headlines, just a single photographer, someone she'd hired quietly, who stood across the street. He lifted the camera. Eva gathered her children into a small huddle. The light caught their faces perfectly. A candidate, a portrait. The shutter clicked. She didn't need Landon's empire. She had her own legacy now, walking beside her, one tiny footstep at a time. As they crossed the street, the photographer captured one last frame. Eva Jameson walking forward, sunlight behind her, 4 shadows trailing close. This time the story wasn't about the man who left. It was about the woman who stayed. The end.